Don't chant by the book or follow your seasons. We cast in reverse like true southern heathens. The rules don't stick and we bite not bits. This ain't your grandma's coven, it's the Broken Pentacle witch.
Welcome, witches. So, in the age of endless scrolls, where witchcraft is filtered, staged, and algorithmically rewarded, it's easy to forget that real magic often happens in the shadows. It's messy, it's personal, and most of it would never, ever go viral.
Welcome, dearest witches, to the Broken Pentacle podcast. This is a space for witches who walk their own path underneath an upside down sky, where the stars tell different stories and the magic, well, it's got teeth. We are your hosts, Owlvine and Avalon, two witches who've lived our craft under the southern skies for decades.
It's so nice to be back. So today we're asking what magic returns to us when we stop performing and start practicing privately, messily, and for no one's approval but our own.
To begin with today, we're going to be doing our first segment, the Witch's Apothecary, Elixir, Stone, Herb, and Bone. So you guys know for our very first episode, we introduced the herb hyssop. So today we want to share with you our hyssop results. We have had a very interesting few weeks with this incredibly powerful herb. We also want to invite you to share your experiences as well in the comments here on YouTube, wherever you're watching this.
Yes.
But kick us off, Miss Avalon. What are some of the results that you've experienced with hyssop?
Cleansing, clearing in a way that makes me feel a little bit dreamy, actually. And I'd like to say that that's because it's cleansing like the heaviness in the house. Like I'm cleansing a house that actually isn't mine. So I'm going around and I'm harvesting fumitory fresh from the garden, and I'm making a tea of hyssop, and then I'm dipping the fumitory in the tea and I am smacking it against absolutely everything. And I'm anointing my body as well as like things like, I don't know, yesterday I made not yesterday but last week I made a little herb bundle, and I dipped my my twine, my cooking twine, in the hyssop, and then I laid it out in the sun so that it could soak. And so it soaked up all that kind of good stuff, and then I bound it. So I totally forgot to even mention that when I was talking about the creation. But yeah, like I found that I've been using it a lot lately, and I've even had it in my hair a little bit as well. But I think one of the most personal ones is just the personal anointing. And this is unusual for me, okay? With hyssop, I used crosswork. So I would dip and I would cross. I would dip and I would cross. Now, crosswork is not uncommon for me, but it's not something that I typically use. I sometimes draw the pentacle. I sometimes draw the elemental circle. And I do things like that. Like I work with different symbolism, but for this one, it was the cross. And it was so innate and so, it was cross and cross and cross. It was so innate. And so I feel like you maybe pair it with cross. I would consider pairing it with a cross.
I would definitely agree. I have felt that ever since I started using hyssop, it's just been very natural to me to cross it and also include a little bit of that Bible verse that we spoke about. So Psalm 51:7 is the traditional verse that you would say along with using hyssop at different times if you wanted to include that. So I've used this in a few different ways over the last few weeks, and one of the ways was through head anointing. So this was by creating a tea of hyssop, as we spoke about, letting that cool down. Now, I used this on a night where I was having trouble going to sleep. I had a lot on my mind, and I'm someone you guys will learn who is very mind heavy. I got a lot of stories running through my head at all times. So I'm always working on calming that mind space. So I decided to go to the hyssop, and I crossed my head 3 times with the hyssop and said that psalm. Now, I'm not great with my Bible verses. I don't remember them off the top of my head. I've never been very good at that. So I just said what I could remember, which was wash me clean as snow. And I was repeating that. And I really felt a lift, like pretty immediately. And I went to sleep and I had a wonderful night's sleep. So that was awesome.
Nice.
Another way I've been exploring using it is in a room spray. So with the remainder of that tea, I put it in here into this little bottle, and I've added some hyssop essential oil as well. And then I also put a charged clear quartz in there just to amplify the whole thing. Now, usually if I'm making a room spray with something like a tea, I would add alcohol in there as well, just to stabilize it. But because I'm planning to use this really quickly, so it's not like the greatest, it'll start growing bacteria and things like that. But if you use it really quickly, not a problem. So that's what I'm doing there. And I also will be talking about another herb in just a moment, but today I really wanted to burn hyssop again. So I did that the last time we were together, but I added it with eucalyptus and copal. And this is just like
Nice.
such a powerful cleanser. So
Oh,
beautiful. So that's what I've been burning today as well. And it's so interesting. We've mentioned it a few times, but whatever it is you need at the time, when you are living a magical life and when your channels are open, it'll come to you. So, hyssop
100%.
was Avalon's suggestion, like, let's work with hyssop. I'm like, okay. And oh my God, it has been exactly what I've needed. It's just profound. So I hope other people are having the same experience with hyssop if they're following along at home.
I honestly think that the idea for hyssop came from the fact that I'm in a heavily Catholic household, because there's little crucifixes and rosary beads hanging around everywhere, and like little like religious pictures, which I love. I
Me
love
too.
religious ephemera. I
Mm.
absolutely do. And being that I come from an African diaspora tradition that is heavily infused into Catholicism, like it is not something that has ever bothered me. Not at all, right? But I think being here it just because it just popped into my head, and it's not a herb that I think I've thought about for any great length of time for a very long time. It's yes, it's always been in my herbal cabinet and in my apothecary kit, and I have it, agrimony, hyssop, agrimony, yarrow, and something else. I can't remember it off the top of my head. And I do a nice, purging wash with it. So it's
Mm.
always been the active component in that for me. And just being able to sit with it and explore it and look at its metaphysical uses and its historical uses and its biblical uses has just been so lovely. And it's given me such a more intimate sort of view of it, a more intimate experience with it. And so I hope that as a listener, if you're listening to this or even watching it, that you feel a little bit more educated on the subject of hyssop, or it feels a little bit more familiar to you. And if you've worked with it in your practice, we would love to hear your finds. We would absolutely love to hear your finds, because one thing is true in witchcraft: what works for one doesn't necessarily work for the other. And so it's really good to know just how far the reach of this botanical is and how effective it is on a larger scale. So, bit of a science project, if you will.
Yes, witchy science.
Yeah. We're moving on to our next segment, and that is the Witch's Work Table. This is magical finds, fails, and field notes. So, this is our opportunity to just talk about what we have discovered on our witchy adventures. And so, personally, I'll kick this one off because I'm very excited about it, and I have some of it here. If I can not burn myself when I get it. Okay, this is it in dried form. This is it in dried form. There we go.
Such a beautiful plant.
If you're looking at it, it looks, obviously when it dries, these little yellow balls, they shrink quite a bit, but it's a fluffy, populous kind of um, brush wattle. And so that is the Cootamundra wattle. Now, I have some information for you. So the Cootamundra wattle, its metaphysical properties and its magical properties. So we're starting off with solar energy and vitality. And I think the same can be true for all yellow and orange botanicals, right? They typically they hold that that golden energy. So we have golden blossoms associated with the sun, vitality, and masculine energy, like many yellow flowers in the language of flowers. So I'd put orange in there as well. Invigorating, use in spells for energy, motivation, and overcoming lethargy. Aligns with solar correspondences, and that little snippet of information comes from Scott Cunningham's Magical Herb Guide.
Mm.
And then we have its protection and purification qualities. So, in Aboriginal law, wattles are traditionally used in smoke cleansing, similar to white sage. Bundles can be burned to clear negative energy away, and it's used in threshold magic. Branches are hung above doors and windows to ward off harm, a practice noted in the Australian Folk Magic by Kate Forsyth. Then we move on to new beginnings and resilience. So it's an early bloomer, one of the first plants to flower after bushfires, symbolizing rebirth, linked to Australian ecological folklore. So that's where that comes from. And seed pods carry or plant to manifest perseverance through challenges. And then we move on to the fourth component, which is love and friendship. So Victorian flower magic, yellow acacias represent secret love or platonic bonds per Kate Greenway's Flower Dictionary. And then we have, we can use it in a charm bag combined with dried blossoms, its dried blossoms with rose quartz for friendship spells. And you could probably adjust that a little bit if you wanted to bring in a bit of love as well. So if you're an Aussie witch and you just want to bring a bit of love, but you want that love to have a bit of that strong friendship component, you could mix red rose petals or a red plant of some description, a flower of some description, and bring that in with the Cootamundra jasper and then mix it with a crystal that complements rose quartz. I'd still keep the rose quartz in there though. I just add another component to it and mix it up and maybe put it in a charm bag. And that's what tumblestones are for and crystal chips are for, is for charm bags. So
Yeah.
perfect for them. And then lastly, we have the ancestral connection and dream work component. So Aboriginals and some First Nations groups use wattle in rituals for ancestral communication. So that one was referenced in the ethnobotany of Australian flora, and in dream pillows, dried flowers are added to promote prophetic and lucid dreams. So practical magical uses, smoke cleansing, spring rituals to decorate altars during Ostara and Litha for the solar energy, and protection sachets fill a cloth pouch with dark blossoms tied with red thread. It's necessary to say that this species of wattle can be invasive in some areas, so harvest carefully and ethically, of course. So that's the Cootamundra wattle. I was so excited when I found it. And by the way, I harvested a literal fuckload of it very carefully, with intention, with purpose, from a tree that had what felt like millions of bumblebees buzzing around me. And they left me alone completely as I was caressing the leaves. I was having a real shamanic moment. I'm touching these leaves. Thankfully, I don't suffer from allergies because the pollen ratio in these particular acacias, they are insane, absolutely insane. So it was just such a beautiful experience. And I got so excited when I realized what it was. Oh, what about you, Owlvine? What have
Right.
you found?
My magical find for this week that I wanted to share is Eucalyptus orbifolia. So obviously eucalyptus is a tree that I would say Australia is known for worldwide. This one particularly is a more rounded leaf. So it's actually the plant that I've included in our logo as well. So we have a branch of the Eucalyptus orbifolia, and I wanted it for its properties of healing and protection. So protection for us, of course, just creating a logo, witches, put in your protections. But then the healing, I want the intent, or the intention for us is that this will be a space that brings healing to people through through the medicine of laughter or education or inspiration or receiving ahas or whatever it might be. So I really wanted that in there as well to make sure that the work we're doing is healing. So if you are using it for healing work, traditionally you can stuff poppets or dolls with this, and obviously use those for healing specifically. You can hang a branch over a sick bed as well to ward
Nice.
away the illness. You can also string the immature or the green little pods on a green piece of thread and wear that around the neck to actually help heal a sore throat. And you can put it under your pillow to guard against colds. So this is probably a good season for it with things flying around. Put a little bit of eucalyptus under there to keep all that away. Now for protection, it wards off and repels enemies or evil spirits. You can also bathe with the eucalyptus regularly to help cast off evil. Now, traditionally, hyssop is added to this as well if you're to blame, right? So if it's your bad habits or something that you've done that we're like, we need to clear this off, you'll have hyssop with the eucalyptus. But it's really great for baths to clear away those things. So evil could be considered bad companions or those bad habits, the things around you that you don't want there anymore. You can also wear one of these little leaves in your shoe and it will protect you from crossed conditions. Okay, so it's just that little extra protection to carry throughout your day with you. Now, the last thing is that traditionally eucalyptus and camphor, however you say that, are burnt together. And this rids a premises of evil, and it's also a personal cleanse. So if you stand over the smoke, depending how you do it, and bathe yourself in that smoke as well. I burnt this today. I didn't have camphor on me. So I've got eucalyptus, copal, and hyssop, those three together. So that was been a really, really beautiful cleanse this morning. So this is my magical find for the week. And it's not fresh. There's actually a tree like 2 streets from me with this beautiful plant, and they trimmed it the other day and there was a bunch of branches. So I collected all those up and then dried the leaves, and I'm so excited to have this on hand now for all my witchy shenanigans.
Very nice. What did you say the Latin name for it was?
It's Eucalyptus orbifolia.
Yeah. Okay. So mine is Acacia Baeliana. So more acacia vibes than eucalypt. So very interesting though. Beautiful energy. Might have to do a herb swap, Owlvine.
Yeah, I think so.
I've got so much of it now. So let's get back to the topic at hand. And so today, the Broken Pentacle, we, Owlvine and Avalon, would like to talk about dealing with the comparative mindset and oversaturation of the external. We live in a social media era. So this is why this is such a poignant conversation at this moment in time.
All right, well, let's start here. Avalon, how do you feel social media shape the way we think magic should look? And what does it cost us when we start comparing instead of practicing authentically?
I think that it can actively derail the natural flow within our own practice, and not necessarily in a bad way, just sometimes in a bad way. Sometimes we get called into a direction because it looks beautiful, it looks aesthetically pleasing, it holds an inherent energy of magic because of that pleasing aesthetic nature. And therefore, we get pulled and tugged in different directions because of that strong aesthetic. Now, I just want to preface this conversation by saying I love the witchcraft aesthetic. I think it is absolutely gorgeous. I think that there should be more movies made. I think there should be more books written. I just love the aesthetic. There is something quite magical inherently in that aesthetic. But we need to remember that that aesthetic came from somewhere. Originally, it originated from somewhere, from someone's practice, from the way someone set up their house, or a myriad of different ways. That idea comes from somewhere. And when we're recreating and emulating, it you can run into a little issue of, I hate to say it, but it can present issues of, venerating false idols. Sometimes, and I think this is true now, if you look the part, you are the part. And that isn't inherently true.
Mm.
I think I blinked a little bit there. But if you find yourself overly influenced, and I think that that is something that we have all suffered from, myself included, it becomes harder then to find the core of your practice, or to return to the core of your practice, or to hear your own ancestors. Your magic has its own ancestors. And when you start practicing the magic of someone else because it looks nicer, you can lose contact with the inherent magic that belongs to you, that belongs to your bloodline, that is inherent in your geo network. So the place in which you exist right now is its own landscape, it's its own little world. And the more you connect with what you have and where you are and who you are right now, the more powerful and potent your practice can be. Now, I think Owlvine touched on this in our very first episode, where she said she felt alone in Australia at the time when she was learning witchcraft, and she was learning about witchcraft, and she was constantly looking at the Northern Hemisphere for that very thing. And in doing so, it created a disharmony in her practice, and she spoke about that quite beautifully. So I think the cost can actually be quite great.
Mm.
Yes, there are some incredible teachers online. Yes, there's some incredible fountains of inspiration, people who are very genuine in their practice. And then there are those who have come to the practice because of what it can give you, rather
Mm.
than what it holds inherently for you. And
Mm.
so that's how I feel a little bit. But how would you say, how would you say it shapes the way that magic should look, and what does it cost us when we start comparing it instead of?
So this struggle with authenticity is something that I've been working through, for my roughly 10 years online now. It's been a struggle for me to know what to share. And I think this can be obviously an issue for anyone sharing anything online, but particularly when sharing something so personal as your spiritual practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
What should I be share? I want to be authentic. So what should I be sharing? Should I be sharing everything? Do I share this? I don't share that. If I hold that back, is that inauthentic? So these are the things that I've struggled with over my time being online. Now, the other component of that, of course, is seeing everyone else's practice. And that can leave you with a feeling of, I should be doing this, or this isn't right, or I'm not doing enough, or whatever it might be. It creates a lot of noise.
Yes.
I think something important to remember is this cycle of judgment that we can be in. Anytime we are pointing a finger at someone else and judging them for anything, some person you don't even know online, whoever it is, it doesn't matter what the circumstances of the judgment are. Every time you judge someone else and point a finger, you're pointing at least three, or in my case, four, because I have a super bendy thumb, right back at yourself. So threefold, you are receiving that judgment, and that goes into your psyche, and it builds a really large problem. And I think a lot of us are suffering from this, particularly because we're in a social media age where we are constantly being bombarded by people's highlight reels. So that creates a lot of, judgment within, which will only turn back on self.
Yeah, a lot of comparative mindset can settle in then. And so it's less about practicing for your goals and for your needs and
Mm.
for your ancestors or for what you want, and more about practicing to a standard so that it can be recorded and posted online. Like, I like to say this, and I'll say it over and over again: witchcraft has had to learn to smile for the camera. It is it feels strange to even say it out loud, but that's exactly what it is. It's had to, it's remained in the shadows for such a long time, and that's not necessarily a good thing either, but it's now more open and more visible than ever. And there is an impact to that over visibility, to that accessibility. And it's just such an interesting conversation to have, honestly. I would like to have this conversation with just about every witch, if I'm being perfectly honest,
Mm.
and see, like, and do an opinion poll and to really see how they feel about this. And, young witches, older witches, people more established in their craft. I think to hear of their personal journeys, their personal stories, practicing the craft at a time where, there's a lot of eyes.
Mm.
That's a very unusual circumstance. We live in very unusual times for that reason. And there's this inherent need for everyone to hold a phone and record it, because apparently if you don't record it, it never really happened.
Moving away from that is powerful. I think some people I've heard, other witches have let me know that they've struggled with this in that their craft becomes so tied to social media. They actually let that, and it's very easy to let that impact your craft, but to the point where they're only practicing for social media. So if you're someone who finds yourself in this space, I would recommend stepping back a little bit, purely for your own sake, to get all of that noise out of your head so you can ground your practice again and find joy in that. Because I have found anyone who is doing these things for external is not happy, is not at peace, and they're not flowing in their power because they're focused on the outside instead of their own craft.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's a lot to be said for it. I think on one side, it's a beautiful celebration after having been oppressed for so long. And on the other side, it's an overexposure experience. So
Mm.
I think finding the sweet spot for every person, and I think that changes generationally speaking.
Yeah.
Like I'm a mother of young children. They use social media in a specific way. I use social media in a specific way. My elderly, almost 80-year-old father uses social media in a very specific way. And so it's very dependent on era and circumstance and context and all of that kind of good fun stuff. But this
Mm.
brings us to some talking points that we shall sink our teeth into and explore a little bit better. Okay. Forgive the wording. I wanted strong. The curse of the aesthetic witch. Social media's impact on magical authenticity, how comparison drains power. Do you want to kick us off, Alvine? We did touch on it a little bit, but I think we can go a little bit deeper too.
I think it's just that innate thing of taking something which is inherently deeply, deeply personal. You cut off your voice and you cut off your spirit's voices when you're not focused on them primarily. You're focused on the external. You're focused on what other people think of you and wanting to impress them, wanting to get all the likes or whatever it might be. It just sullies your practice from a feeling point of view. So if you can do those things and it doesn't affect you, like completely disregard this conversation. But I think for most people, there is a disconnect that happens, a feeling of not goodness, let's say, when you
Mm,
are doing that and focused on that. So it is really difficult in this age where we're wanting to share all these beautiful things to maybe hold some back. And that would be my recommendation. Just hold a little back. If you're feeling too exposed, you're oversharing, pull back a little, have something that's just for you. And this can be a weird transition because we've come from, or we're in this space where it's like, show everything that you can, you want all those photos, all those videos, like put it out there as much as possible, but really holding some for your own. You'll find, I think, pretty quickly that it just ignites your magic. It ignites you from within to have some spaces that are unseen in your practice.
100%. Yeah, I think you've put it really well. I also like to think of social media as like this attractive thing, right? Like when a TV is going, you can't help but watch it.
Mm.
Like the term doom scrolling exists for a reason because it's a hypnotic experience, right? And so when you're on there, it's when you're filming for it and when you're also consuming it, it's a draining experience. It's pulling that attention, it's pulling that focus, it's pulling that energy out of you. You can get quite I've I've done this myself. I have doom scrolled on TikTok and time has just disappeared on me.
Mm.
And the first time it happened, I was genuinely horrified. Like, how long have I been here? What happened? Like, I felt like I'd emerged from like this, I don't know, this weird dreamy stupor or something.
Mm.
And I noticed the effect that it had on my mental health as well. And when you talk about the noise, you've nailed it. It is a lot of noise. And also, I would just like to say that not every witch's spell is a candle spell.
This is a personal gripe.
This is a personal gripe of mine because obviously fire is visually spectacular.
Mm.
You don't have to pull attention with fire. You
Mm.
light a candle. This is how you curse a ex, or this is how you bring about love, or pick your theme. It's always a candle. You don't always need a candle for magic.
Mm.
I'm just saying, you don't always need a candle. Most often, you don't need the candle.
Mm.
And you can always substitute the candle with a raging backyard fire should you live rurally in Australia, which I know some of you do. So,
Highly recommended. So historically, most witches have worked in obscurity, in secret. So, Avalon, why do you think visibility is now conflated with validity?
I think because witchcraft has become a business.
Mm.
And because of that, you want to hold authority because authority can be quite powerful. And with authority comes clout. And with clout comes the ability to throw around a bit of weight and to to build a brand and to really like have that brand become a solid impact in the world. And so I think I think now we're living in a time where if you look it, you dress it, you speak it, you are it. But we forget that witchcraft is the intangible. It's the thing that runs through you when you are doing the craft. A witch is a channel. A
Mm.
witch is a channel for spirit, for ancestor, for creative vision, for flow, for imagination, for just general breath life force. Whatever you believe in, you don't have to assign a religious motif to it or any kind of sort of deity, spirit guide kind of thing, especially for the atheistic witches out there. But
Mm.
it's that inherent higher self, that sense of self, right? And so, yeah, I just think that it can be it can be very dangerous. It can just be very dangerous.
Mm. When I was looking into this, I came to the point where I realized that I think part of the issue here is that is the parasocial relationships that we're building. Familiarity breeds trust. So you see someone consistently and you think, oh, there's someone I can trust. There's someone who knows their stuff. But as we know, anyone can turn on a camera these days. So it doesn't necessarily mean that. In evolutionary psychology as well, we're meant for small communities. And so typically the most visible person was the leader, the one that you could trust, the one, who was going to help keep you safe, the one who you follow. So I think there are these deeper biological things going on. And now we're just in this weird space where we've got the internet and it's this new thing and this new way of interrelating, where now we have this parasocial thing going on where people create very strong one-sided relationships and they put a lot of trust, a lot of authority into these people. And that's something that, I mean, I would love to encourage people to move away from, to try and be aware of. I know it's something that's just happens to us because I have people that I feel like this about this too. But moving away from that space is so empowering because in those moments where you are handing the authority over to someone online who doesn't even know you, you're giving away your power. And we've seen examples of when things have happened with those people in leadership positions. And then the people who have followed them and handed their power over to them like this feel a tower moment. This other person gets exposed for whatever, and they go, oh my goodness, all of the things that I received from this person are now invalid, which I also want to say is not true. Once you receive something, it's yours. It's got nothing to do with that person, that teacher, that guru, whoever. Stop handing away your power as much as possible. At least bring awareness into this issue.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely agreed. We then have the remedy of secrecy, how withholding your craft from public scrutiny can restore its potency. Now, I'd like to take this one if you don't mind.
Please.
So I was recently privy to a conversation, and it was this beautiful woman talking about how she absolutely loves the witchcraft aesthetic, and I must agree with her here. The witchcraft aesthetic is absolutely gorgeous. For those of us who enjoy collecting and trinkets, oh my God,
Yeah.
the dopamine, the dopamine, right? The dopamine. But, and the same thing, like think about all of the mystics in the arena of witchcraft. You've got your tarot readers, your numerologists. When you think about these people, what image pops up in your mind? I promise you, it's not Granny May on the corner with her 9 cats and everything is like beautiful little floral patterns and a minimalistic shabby chic. But Granny May on the corner can hex your whole entire family line. And she doesn't need a camera to do that. She's working in private, which makes her fucking lethal. And so I think that withholding some of your craft is magic in and of itself. It's the mystery, it's the wonder that is withheld. You say, I'm a witch, this is my altar, but I'm not going to show you how I do anything on my altar because my altar is my altar. It's my magic place. As a content creator myself, I have a public altar and I have a private altar. My private altar never sees a camera ever. My public altar does because I'm a professional reader and I do a lot of tarot readings and a lot of how-to videos for my patrons and what have you not. But it is a specific space. I don't go to that altar to feel this connection to spirit. I go to that altar to professionally connect with my ancestors, my gods, my guides, my guardians, and I go to my private altar for ancestral veneration, for spellcraft, for divination, for witch work of any kind. And I think that that's really important. I think to withhold is to covet something quite special. It's protective. I think it has this protective quality. And when you're protective over your craft, it ups the level of respect that you show to your craft. And that in and of itself is such a powerful experience to really protect and honor your craft. This is not to say that you can't share photos on Instagram. This is not to say that you can't have a YouTube channel. This is not to say that you can't have a TikTok or share some stuff on Snapchat or whichever platform floats your boat. It's about what you share, how often you share, the quantity and quality of what you share. If you're sharing absolutely everything, then nothing is private. So when are you having those moments? When are you connecting with your ancestors? When are you having those true, genuine, honest, witchy moments? When are you having your breakdowns? When are you having your cries? When are you getting your altar dirty? Like, it's very easy to see when something is staged by how neat it looks, how clean it looks. I have never walked into the house of a witch and that there's and it be a fresh as a daisy experience. There's ash, there's rocks, there's I've got to clean that. I've got to redo it.
Mm,
Like it's like the extension of the house. Like please don't the house is messy, please don't look at it kind of vibe. The altar's messy, have at
mm,
it. Like welcome,
mm,
welcome to the space. I think it creates a much more realistic experience, which
mm,
is why I was saying I think cleansing and clearing is really
mm,
evident and beautiful because a witch's altar does actually require a lot of cleansing and a lot of clearing, especially if you are churning out spells. If you are churning out spells at a rapid rate, if you are making, creating, and fashioning and doing all the things, you need to clear that energy out. Yes, some of that magic builds, it's quite temple space kind of energy, but for the most part, clear it. Create, clear, create, clear, create, clear, so things aren't bleeding into one
mm.
another. It's metaphysical maintenance, I believe.
Absolutely.
What would you say, Alvine?
So I've definitely had a very powerful experience withdrawing my practice from eyeballs. I'm someone who's created for YouTube for some years, and I stepped away from doing that regularly about 7 years ago. Now, that entire time I've been planning to come back and create full time. We're starting now, okay? We're getting the ball rolling, which is wonderful. But what I found is at that time, because I was sharing so much, I just had that noise. Just, I felt like I had a chorus of people in my head constantly judging and thinking this and thinking that. That is a personal issue of mine in my larger life as well. But I found obviously when you share that stuff, unfortunately, it invites people to share their opinions. And some people don't behave very nicely online. So it just creates that issue there. But removing my practice from public view, I've still been working as a witch in that time, but not sharing so much my own personal craft, more, you know, as a teacher in that sort of sense. So there's that separation there, which has felt really nice for me. And in this time, I have built such a beautiful practice. Like it's finally gotten to that point where I feel, even though I'm a person that lacks grounding, as we know, sometimes I feel very grounded in my practice and like so surrounded by it, so filled up by it, so supported by it. And I don't ever feel blockages with it anymore. Like anytime I need something or feel a inner hole, I don't know how to say that better, something missing within self, I can just go into my practice, and that's been something really powerful. Removing it from all the opinions, having it as my own, I found that it really helps to keep my channel clear. It removes all the have tos and shoulds and noise and blur. It feels so refreshing. So if you're in that space where you're feeling like there's all this noise around, there's all these opinions, or even if no one's saying it to you, it doesn't even matter about that. It's how you feel and the stories that are going on in your head that are blocking you from experiencing your craft as beautifully as you could. So stepping away a little is definitely something I would recommend periodically, just to have that space. Sometimes you don't even realize you need it until you take that space and you're like, oh,
Mhm.
this feels much better. So whether that's a day or a week, or maybe a small time regularly, whatever it is, or if it's a big block of time that you need, bringing it to the unseen is definitely a really powerful way to get in touch with your craft super deeply.
Mm. Very nicely said. Very nicely said. So there's a lot of medicine to it. I think
Yeah.
what we've been saying slowly, what we've been drip feeding slowly, like I'm starting to sense a pattern emerging now. And I think there's a lot of medicine
Mm.
to that privacy element. It's not for everyone. We live in a very overly
Mm.
exposed time, but I think there is so much hidden medicine. Nothing is more alluring when it is secret.
Mm.
Everybody wants to know what's behind the curtain. And so I think there's that, I think we have a duty to create that mystery and that mysticism and that
Mm.
woo-woo sense, that magical, untouchable, inaccessible component to each of our individual practices. Because at the end of the day, magic in the hands of people that don't know how to respect it can be quite a dangerous thing. And I mean psychologically, emotionally dangerous. And I've seen this in my own life. I've seen this in the past. I've seen people come to the craft when they haven't been well calibrated, they're not grounded, they're not centered, and it doesn't have a positive impact in their
Mm.
life. And
Mhm.
so that grounding and that centering becomes paramount to the experience. There's a reason why fundamental magical teachings begin with grounding, centering, calling back your energy. Those three components should be the entry point to all magic all the time. And it's something that even a fresh witch will know. They will
Mm.
have come across the concept of grounding and centering. Sure, spells will be there first, but grounding and centering are the primary
Yeah.
components. Because to practice magic, you need to be grounded and centered. To execute good spells, grounded and centered. To meditate, grounded and centered. Find me a magical practice, including journey work, that
Mm.
doesn't require grounding and centering first.
Very, very true.
So it's a thing. Now, I've got further questions for you, Alvine. So, what's something in your practice you've stopped doing because it didn't look magical enough?
So I really scratched my head over this one to make sure, but I can definitely say nothing. There isn't anything I've stopped doing because it didn't look magical enough. There's plenty I haven't shared because it doesn't look magical enough. But for myself, I've found the struggle that I've had in my practice, the thing that's kind of blocked me or stopped me is the external attitude of you can't sit with us. This is off limits to you. This kind of magic is not being able, you can't practice this. You're not welcome here, etc. There's a lot of that in the magical space.
Yeah.
So that was something that really slowed me down at one point. But then I found by taking my practice private, no one says anything. You can do whatever you like behind closed doors, right? There are those things that are a bit more taboo, perhaps. When they're behind closed doors, you've got that secrecy there.
Yeah, I think so. I think you've put it beautifully. I can say with all certainty that I'm a Taurus, right? I like beautiful things. I like lavish and beautiful things. The fact that I have a yellow wall behind me, teeny white yellow,
It's hurting her.
there's no life behind here. There's
Mm.
no presence. There's nothing. There's no aesthetic, right? And so I feel that at times I can't produce what I'd like to produce because the background isn't good enough, even though what should be my primary focus is what is coming out of my mouth or what I'm perhaps doing with my hands. I think we miss out on such an incredible opportunity by overcomplicating with aesthetic. Like back home, Brazil is a third world country. And beautiful is different over there. Witchcraft looks different over there. It's terracotta pots on corners. It's burnt candles and offerings of food and money. It's the sound of drums in the distance. It's the smell of incense smoke in the air in a prolific capacity. It is evocative and primal. It's still ritual animal sacrifice. It's spirit possession. It's root work at its core over there. And it's very ancestral and it's very spirit based. And I come from that background, and yet you walk into a person's house and it can be quite dilapidated. The walls can be peeling and it doesn't look aesthetically beautiful, but they practice banger fucking magic in
Mm.
these places. They might have a candle in a plastic cup, which honestly made my soul just cringe a little bit then. Because I'm all natural. I try to be as
Mm.
natural as I can with my practice. I don't use metal. I use wood. I use glass. I do use different metals in my practice, but very, very purposefully. And but I have the luxury of doing that. And I think that's something that's really important to remember, is that much of what we see in the aesthetic component is in fact a luxury that not everyone, in fact, a vast quantity of people cannot get their hands on. So it creates quite the separatist experience for people.
Mm.
And then again, that veneration of false idols, because if you have this incredible space and you have all the gear and all the beautiful things, you must be legit, and I must aspire to be like that. And
Mm,
it just creates a very I guess a very unbalanced experience.
for sure.
And so for me, honestly, the look magical enough, it's very relevant because I struggle to balance aesthetic with authenticity. Like my practice at home, very authentic to me. Very authentic. In my own space, everything as I want it, things that I have cultivated, and the way that I lay everything out, that's very authentic to me. That's not modeled by anyone. And I had a friend come through my house the other day and she's like, "Can I have a look at your altar?" And I said, "Sure, but you can't touch." And she came in and she's like, "Oh, it's so busy. It's so messy." And I said, "Yes, it's not a Buddhist minimalist experience here. Um, I'm like a bird who's collected all these things."
Magpie.
Exactly, exactly. So she looked at it and thought, "No, absolutely not. That's too messy." Whereas I had freshly done my altar, so there was not a speck of dust on it. And I'm looking at it going, we're nothing alike.
Uh,
So that would probably be it. Like the aesthetic component, it would be, it doesn't look magical enough.
mm. I think too, I just wanted to say something you said sparked a thought.
Mhm.
The stuff can be a real distraction. So you can see behind me, I got all the stuff, right? Love the aesthetic, love the things, love all the stuff. I found there was a point in my practice where I was focused on the external stuff, buying books, getting new decks, acquiring herbs, whatever, bringing the stuff in. And I find that that can be a real distraction. We spoke in the last episode about aventurine, and you were talking about your first crystal, fluorite, and I had aventurine as my first crystal. And at that time, we only had one crystal. So we
Yeah.
worked with that crystal. And same with decks. When I started, I had one deck for a year or more, I'm not sure, but I have such a close relationship with that deck. When you're bringing in new shit all of the time, it's a distraction. You never go deep, right? If you're getting the things so that you can put them on social media, because that's another component of it as well, is the newness. I've noticed the newness, the new deck, the new that, whatever it is. So all of this can be a distraction.
It can. It can really be a distraction. And I have a lot of stuff. I've repped a lot of, magical businesses through my YouTube channel and that, and I was sent 3, 4, 5, 6 PR boxes monthly. And I live in a tiny home. I've had to donate so much stuff just so that I can live, still exist
You
in this.
can move around. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And I do see it as a beautiful thing. I think if you can move through all the stuff and find your own personal aesthetic, because in the
Mm,
same way that we dress and the colors that we like and the foods that we like to eat, we have our own tastes. And I think your witchcraft space, or the way that you curate your craft in whichever way that appears to you, is it warrants your taste being infused into it.
yes.
So if you've watched enough witchcraft content, you will know that there is a uniform. There is a uniform. And that uniform shifts a little bit here and there in accordance with taste, but it's still a uniform nonetheless. And when you can find your own taste, I think you're in a really good place.
Mm,
When your witchcraft is like an expression of self, a true expression of self, then I think you're in a good place. And then it deserves being a bit protective of it, because
Mm,
that's special. You've taken time to carefully curate your craft and to express it in a way that is so authentic to who you are. That is not for the eyes of millions. That is for the eyes of some. And when you can create a nice little point of division for yourself, you preserve the sacredness of your practice while also sharing the wisdom of your
mm.
craft at the same time. And I think that that's the beautiful balance that needs to be struck. It's not
Yeah.
completely withdrawing, it's knowing where to draw that line of what to
Mm,
share and making sure that wisdom is still being shared out in the world. More wisdom than provocative kind of content. Do you know what I mean? I
yes.
think there are still some beautiful creators sharing wisdom about, the chalice or the the candle or whatever it might be. I've just gone for some basics there, but there's still so many beautiful creators sharing genuine wisdom rather
Mm,
than aesthetic how-tos.
yeah.
And I think that that's where the comparison can be made a little bit, and that may change in the future.
So, considering all this, then, is there wisdom in occasionally disconnecting from the magical community and reconnecting with your own craft?
Do you want to take this one?
So, I have in bold capitals, yes, in my notes. Yes, yes, yes. If you haven't got that already. So, quietening the noise and then just reconnecting with yourself, with your practice, whatever that is for you, with your magic. For me, a component of this is nature as well. So, I wanted to mention it because I think a lot of witches, a base foundation of their practice is nature, or at least they feel that magical connection in nature. So just getting outside or opening a window or looking at the moon, these basic, simple things. But yes, getting away from all the noise and having some time for just you and your practice. Yes, yes, yes.
Very nice. I would I would have to agree. I don't think I even have anything to add to that. I think that what you said was just perfection. Thank you. Perfection.
Perfection.
So that brings us to a bit of a close now, folks, for our third episode of the Broken Pentacle. We are going strong, folks, and I hope that you are enjoying our conversations and our topics. Should you wish to volunteer a topic for exploration for one of our podcasts, then be sure to comment. We are, of course, on TikTok. We are a little bit on Instagram. We are mostly on YouTube. So you can get us in most locations and we're streaming across most platforms. So, would you like to sign us off?
We do have one viewer. Sorry, let me start that again. We do have a question for our wonderful audience, our wonderful witches. If you would care to share, we want to know, do you witch face? Are you someone who looks like a witch? Do you love the aesthetic? Do you wear pentacles, nails? Do you look like a witch out there in the world? Or are you an undercover witch?
That's a good one.
Hmm.
When I think of witch face, I definitely see Laurie Cabot in my mind. I
She
just,
is witch, isn't she? The
she
hair,
does it
everything.
well. Like she nails it. Like
Oh,
that's it. That's the extremity of it, as far as I'm
yeah.
concerned.
There's a scale. Laurie Cabot is
Is the
10.
pinnacle of that scale.
Yeah. All right, witches, that's it from under our upside down sky. You've been listening to The Broken Pentacle, where the stars tell different stories and the magic always has teeth. Until next time, witches, much love and many blessings.
Bye.